So today, how to win the current housing market. My name is Kimo. I'm the founder of Expat Housing Network. I'm half Dutch, half Caribbean, and I'm a proud father of a daughter who is 4 years old, but she thinks she's 16, so that's always good fun. And I bought my own home about 5 years ago. But it took me a while before I got my offer accepted. Please note that back then I wasn't helping people out with, or we weren't helping people out with buying homes. So what did I know? Luckily, I managed to get an offer in, and honestly, if I knew then what I know now, then things would look a little bit different. Today's goal is to add value to you guys, and therefore, please, if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat or turn on your camera and fire away. We're going to talk a little bit about the mind state and 5 tips of succeeding in the current market. I believe greatness is achieved in the agency of others. What that does that mean? That if you decide to move forward with our services, then you will most likely will be helped by one of my colleagues. They have nowadays more experience than I have actually securing homes for people. So that's great. As you can see, they've either all lived abroad or they're actually from abroad. So we know what it's like to move to a new country and set up a new home. These are the areas where we can help you. So most of them are the metropolitan areas. So Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, Eindhoven, Maastricht, and Groningen. I'll share a little bit more about the EHN and then we'll actually get to the most important parts. We're not traditional real estate agents. We don't have a background in real estate. We don't do it for the deals, the bricks. We don't move things like that. We move because we want to help people find a home and feel at home. We also just focus on helping with buying. We don't do selling, which means that we can focus specifically on your clients and will not be distracted by maybe an easier business, which is selling at the moment. We charge a fixed fee, no commission, and we know what it's like to move into a new country. What is the added value of working with us? Well, selling agents take our offers more seriously. We can sometimes book in viewings when it's no longer possible. We support by reviewing legal and Dutch documents. We also help define market values through the market data, probably one of the most important ones, and we'll inform you about rules and regulations and make sure you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Okay, now let's get into it. The mind state. Um, Everybody is seeing prices going up. Everybody's seeing or hearing articles or reading articles in the news stating that the market is hot at the moment. People are overbidding. Um, I often get the question, is this a good time to buy? And the answer I give them is, it is as good as time as any, but please be mindful of where you are in the market. Um, and why are prices going up? And this is what I'm going to share with you, because prices are going up because of several different reasons. One of the most important ones is fiscal benefits, so tax exemption. If you're 34 years or younger, if you buy a property up to 400,000 euros, or if you haven't bought a property with tax exemption before, then you don't have to pay transfer tax. Transfer tax is 2% of the purchase price. 2% of the purchase price is quite a lot of money. What we're seeing, however, is people putting that money back into the property offers that they're making. So prices are going up. Interest rebate, so you can deduct your interest off your taxable income. Also quite interesting, which makes you kind of like able to spend a little bit more on a mortgage. So we're seeing that driving the price up as well. There's also no capital gains tax. So if you sell your house with a profit, you can put all of that money back into a new home. No capital gains tax. By the way, Zoe, yes, good question. This recording will be sent to you, so you don't need to write everything down. I am known to speak a bit fast every now and then, but no worries, we'll send it to you via email. Then what we were talking about is fiscal benefits. So tax exemption, interest rebate, and capital gains all make it very attractive to own or buy a home. Of course, low interest rates is another thing. Between 1.5 and 2%, they are historically low. So it's very cheap to buy money. Please note, it's not free to buy money, to buy a house or to get money. Does still cost some money. High rents is also what drives a lot of people towards the buying market. And of course, the lack of supply makes it so that there's a discrepancy between the number of people looking for a home and the number of homes on the market. That is driving the prices up. What I see is that these top factors are not going to change anytime soon. This is very much driven by a liberal government, and their constituency consists of people that own a home or want to buy a home. So they're not going to change that anytime soon. What does that mean, though? That at least the next year, most likely the next 2 years, prices will continue to increase. Of course, I am not a financial specialist or econometrist, because there might be macroeconomical tendencies or developments that create something else. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that the price will go up at least 1 or 2 years. Also, know that if you buy, don't buy for 1 or 2 years because that's speculation. Buy for a little bit longer. If you have to move or leave the country, then you can always rent out the property. 5 tips to succeed. We'll tell you a little bit more on how you can succeed in this housing market. Preparations have to work, right? Nailing your finances is so very important. Why? Because you want to, of course, first understand what you want to spend on a monthly basis because this is linked to your mortgage. Then talk to an independent mortgage broker. I always compare a bank to a retail shop. What they do is they'll try to sell you the products they have on offer there. But a mortgage broker is a more like a personal stylist shopper. They don't care where you buy. They have a range of products. They work with, well, 20, 30 different mortgage providers. So they'll have 40 different products they can offer you, whereas a bank will only give you two, maybe three products. The mortgage broker is independent. There's a law against any incentives from mortgage broker to drive you in a specific direction. So as long as you're happy, you know what you're buying for, and you look good in it, they'll be happy as well. They'll be able to inform you what the max is that you want to borrow, and they can pre-confirm the mortgage to some extent. Not an official pre-confirmation, but something that will help you a little bit later on in the process. They'll also be able to give you the best rates because one decimal point of difference can already make up for what you're paying them. And please note, what you're paying them is tax deductible. So you get 40% of the amount back that you pay for a mortgage advisor. Okay, then understanding what you have to spend on purchase fees, very important. If you have to pay transfer tax, you pay 5% of the purchase price most likely. If you pay if you don't pay transfer tax, it's closer to 3%. What is included in that purchase fees or the closing fees as we call it? The notary is included, the buying agent is included, the mortgage advisor or bank costs are included, transfer tax if you have to pay it is included, the interpreter. So everything related to you buying a house is included in there. So make sure you understand what that is because that's going to have an impact on what you would need to save to start this process. And then currently people are offering over market value. So what is good to know is that you have to put up some savings on the side as well to make your offer look attractive at the moment. Then fundamentals. So first you've cleaned out your finances and now you know what you can search for and how to search for it. Some of you might have already seen or know this. Some of you might not. What we try to do is give you and some general tips and some more specific tips. The first one is save your search query. Very easy. What Funda does, they send you properties that service that match your criteria. Look for date. Don't look for relevance. Date is very important because properties move so quickly nowadays. Like I think in Amsterdam, it's what 14, 15 days from moment that it services to the moment that it's sold. So be mindful of new properties. If a property's been online for 2 or 3 weeks, most likely it will already be fully booked. Of course, check if they're available. And then check the status here. If it says under offer or sold, well, that makes it clear you can't submit an offer on it anymore. Asking price, very important, but this is probably one of the most important ones. If you, for example, see a property over the weekend that surfaced Friday afternoon, book a viewing in through this link. Don't wait until Monday to call the agent. Book a viewing in, get into their system because what they'll do is Monday morning, they'll check their system first. And once they've actually secured viewings with the people that are in their system, then they'll take phone calls and help you with the viewing. Also, when you look for properties at least 15 to 20% below your market or your budget cap. Why? We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you want to be able to actually purchase a property. And again, we'll speak in a few about why that is. If you actually go into the listing, you will be able to see the price per square meter. If you at some point want to compare properties, don't look at the full price, look at the price per square meter. This says more about a property than the full price says because the full price can deviate. And because of the square meters, it might be a little bit higher or lower, but the square meter price gives a better indication of the value of the property. Then, if you buy an apartment, most likely it will become part of a owners association. What does that mean? A building with multiple apartments in it has multiple owners in it. All those owners combined are part of the owner association. They're responsible for maintaining the building, the public areas, and taking out insurance. What is good to know is that in order to have enough money in the VVE or in the owner association to cover for these costs, you have to calculate between €1.30 and €1.60 per square meter. If we look at this property, it has 66 euros per month that you would have to pay in fees towards the owner association. The square meter size is 50, so this is around €1.30. If this amount would have been 40 euros, it would have been below €1 per square meter. And you might want to wonder why that is the case. If this would have been 200 euros, you also want to know why. Why are they saving so much money, right? Is there something wrong? We had a case the other day where the foundation turned out to be a little bit fragile and they wanted to save enough money to cover that just in case. That is stuff that you'll want to know. Also, the energy label, very important because it can give you an impact or an idea of what the um, energy efficiency of the property is. And especially in some of the bigger cities, figure out if the property is on ground that you guys own or that the owners of that building own. Sometimes it's owned by the municipality and then there's certain rules to it. Sometimes it's owned by a private owner. If that's the case, steer clear from it because the bank will not give you a mortgage easily. Then the last section for people that are buying properties that are part of an owner association. Is there a reserve fund? Are there savings in the VVE? And is there a maintenance plan? Are they scheduling new work regarding maintenance in the foreseeable future? Okay, so we've nailed finances. We've looked at the fundamentals, and now there's value, value, value. Why is this so important? Look at this property. It's on the market for 400,000 euros. We're all reading in the news that people are offering 10, 15, 20% over the asking price. Whenever people tell me how much should I overbid over the asking price, I tell them don't look at the asking price too much. Look at the asking price when you search for properties, that is fine. But let's look at this one. So this example, agent number one puts the property up for 400,000 euros. Please be mindful that the asking price is the price that the selling agent puts the property up for. So there's a lot of freedom for the selling agent. He can put it up for 400,000 euros or for something else. We'll see that later. The market value, however, is not so much free. The market value is dependent on properties sold in the last 6 to 12 months that are similar and close by. This market value is 430. The purchase price, somebody buys it for 460. The difference between asking and purchase price is 60K, which equals about 15%. And the difference between market value and purchase price is 30K, which is about 7.5%. Let's look at the same property, but a different agent, right? He puts it up for 380. Suddenly, well, the market value stays the same, purchase price stays the same, but suddenly the narrative changes because people are saying, oh, I had to offer 21% over. While the difference between market value and purchase price is no different. So let's not use this narrative. Let's use the narrative. What is the market value versus the purchase price, right? So how much should I offer over value? Because this is the amount that the bank will give you, of course, if your salary permits it. This is the amount that the bank will give you. They're not going to look at this or this. So this is the amount. Um, how do you define a market value? Like I mentioned, properties sold in the last 6 to 12 months that are similar and nearby. One thing we can do is we can help you with defining that market valuation. And there's also some platforms like the Cadastre that can support you with that, but there it's a little bit of a puzzle. Okay, fourth tip, a winning offer. So a winning offer is not always the highest price. It's a good price, but not always the highest price. Let's look at this example again. So let's say you have this property, but you only have 30K in savings. You don't know what the market value is, but you think, okay, hey, so I've heard that you have to offer 20 or 30% over. So I'm going to offer 480,000 euros. The market value, however, is 430. So the bank will only give you this money plus if you add your savings on top, you end technically up at 460. If the selling agent gets wind of you only having 30K, then he's not going to accept your offer because he knows that you're not going to be able to move forward with it. So offer a good price, a reasonable price, a price that you can actually move forward with, but not always the highest price, right? Then offer security to the seller. We talked a little bit before about talking to a mortgage broker and they'll be able to actually kind of like pre-approve. So one of the things you can do in your offer is put something in called a finance clause. A finance clause is a clause that states that you can pull out of the deal if you don't get the mortgage. However, that is giving the seller some sense of insecurity because it's going to be, what is it? 3, 4, 5 weeks after you've signed the purchase agreement before he knows if you're officially going to move forward or not. No seller will want to go through the process again, especially if they're waiting to sell the property because they've already bought something new, and no agent will want to do that either. So, if you want to offer security to the sellers, give them the idea that you're going to move forward with it, right? Tell them more about yourself, help them understand that you have enough funds to move forward, and define if you want to keep the finance clause in or not. Then, for example, the party will want to know how much they would need to do to actually make sure that you're going to move forward and that there's not too much hassle for the seller. So let me give an example. What's the best example? So let's say a seller will want to move out the 1st of February because he's bought something, but it needs to be renovated. If you tell him that he needs to move out the 1st of December because you want to move in, then it's not going to be helpful because the seller will want as the least amount of hassle. If there's critical things that you want done to the property, for example, having a boiler fixed, that makes sense. But having walls repainted, holes fixed or filled, small holes, that is all stuff that I wouldn't request from the seller. So don't give him cause to reject your offer based on some of the requests that you made about the property. Offer personal touch, very, very important. I think there was an article the other day that stated that the majority of homeowners doesn't want to sell to investors unless the price is very high. Um, so what we're seeing is that if you're competing with an offer from an investor, then most likely, if it's a similar offer, if you've shared a little bit more about yourself, why you like the property so much, what your background is, and of course, have given the seller the idea that you're going to move forward and going to be able to move forward, the seller will pick you. So add a letter with some photos, why you love the property. I definitely think it helps. So we've got a winning offer. Congratulations. Now it's time to do your due diligence. Oh, I gave something away there. Two things, two parties that are very, very important. One is a technical inspector, especially if you buy a property that's a little bit older, right? A property that's relatively new, 5 to 10 years, maybe not bother. But anything before that, even like 15, 20 years, could definitely already show some works. So have a technical inspector come in to inspect the property so you understand what you're buying. They're going to find out if there's any errors, defaults, and if there's anything that needs to be fixed. The appraiser is going to come in and create or like define the actual value. So a buying agent cannot define the actual value because the actual value is the value that the bank will use. And the bank has said, well, if the buying agents do that, then they're going to just up the value so they can actually make those offers. So an independent party, the appraiser, technically he's not very independent because you will pay for him. But what he does, he's comes to the property, take photos, asks some questions, does the majority of his work behind his desk, and then files a report. But he doesn't file it directly to the bank. He has to go to an independent institute that checks the report and sees if he plays by the rules. If he played by the rules, then they'll approve it and he send it to the bank. Then the bank will take that value as the value that they'll give you as a mortgage. What we do is we help give you the valuation range, and we're always spot on because there hasn't been a case where the appraiser valued the property much lower or much higher than what our indication was. The only thing is that we can't file that valuation for the bank because we are actually working on your behalf. So we are no longer independent. My question to you guys is do you book these guys before or after your offer is accepted? Please feel free to pop it in the chat. So do you book the technical inspector and appraiser in before or after your offer is accepted? What do you guys think? After, before, 50-50, after? I am going to spill the beans on this. We're still 50-50. After, before. Before is winning. Before is unfortunately not the right answer. Why not? Because these guys cost money to book, right? So you pay about 400 euros for a technical inspector, about 700 euros for the appraiser. If you booked them in before your offer is accepted and your offer is not accepted, you've lost that money. So what you do, and it's a little bit of a trick question. Why? Because you're not very aware of when you're committed to the deal. You're not committed yet when your offer is accepted. You are only committed to the property once you've signed the purchase contract and the cool off period ends. The cool off period is about 3 days after signing the purchase contract, and it cannot end on a weekend. So make sure that once your offer is accepted, you get these guys in ASAP. Why is that important? Because you will want to know what the value is of your property because it's going to help you get that mortgage that you want. You also want to know if there's any things in the property that need fixing on short notice, right? Because if there is, or if there are, you might want to negotiate a little bit. So make sure you get these guys in technically before you sign the purchase contract. Make sure you get those reports before you sign a purchase contract. If that's not possible because they're too busy, then make sure you get them final or before latest the cool off period ends. Because if the cool off period ends, you're committed to the deal and you have to move forward. So make sure you understand when you get these guys in. Okay, so as a brief recap, before you get started, get in the right state of mind, nail your finances, use the fundamentals, always look at market value, send a smart and considerate offer, time your due diligence, and of course, make sure you don't lose motivation. It can be tricky. It can take a little while, but We've always been able to help people out. Now it's time for some questions. Maybe feel free to pop in the chat or turn your mic and ask away.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Mei Ling.
Hi, Mei Ling.
So,
Nice to meet you.
yeah, I've been searching for a house for a few months,
Yeah.
and I have bid for one house also, but I lost the bid.
Hmm.
So I have one question. I realized that in the same area, for the house that is maybe like one street apart from each other, the difference in the asking price can be so big. It can be like I saw one house 369,000,
Hmm.
and maybe 6 months or 3 4 months ago, another house is being advertised in Funda for 415.
Yeah.
The warning area is almost the same.
Yeah. So
Maybe.
there could be a difference in level of quality of the property, right? There could be a small difference for square meters because right now, I'm not sure where this was, but right now prices per square meter can range from 5,000 euros to 12,000 euros in Amsterdam. If you buy somewhere else, then you have to look at the price per square meters there. But don't look at the max or the what is it, the asking price. Look at the price per square meter that says in that listing, because if the price per square meter is relatively the same, then there's most likely maybe a size difference. Or if there's a difference in price per square meter, then it could be a quality difference, or it could have a terrace where the other one doesn't. So there's all these factors that play into it. And that's why it's a bit of a puzzle. But there's all these factors that play into the actual value of the property. It's not just a one-on-one. Hey, there's a similar property there, right around the corner. Maybe it has water view. Maybe the other one doesn't. So there's plenty of reasons why that value could be higher. Of course, don't forget that prices are based on sold properties in the past. If there were 2 or 3 properties sold for a higher price in the meantime, in those couple of months, that might have already driven the price up a little bit. I hope that
Okay.
answers your question.
Yeah. And for the transfer fees, so
Yep.
for is it apply for people who is under 34 years old?
No, the transfer tax, if
Transfer
you're
tax.
34 years or younger and you buy a property up to 400,000 euros, then you don't have to pay transfer tax. If you're 35 or older, or if you pay a property more than 400,000 euros, then you have to pay transfer tax.
So the transfer tax is only there for the old house. If I'm buying a brand new
No,
house,
no, it has nothing to do with the type of house, unless of course you buy a new build that is not finished yet.
okay,
Um, but if you buy a house that already exists and it's owned by an owner, then like the transfer tax doesn't link to that specifically.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so
perfect.
much. Yeah.
Then a question from Kamal: what if the technical inspector finds a structural fault in the house after your offer is accepted? Can you withdraw your offer? For sure. So let me go back to that previous slide. So here, your offer is accepted, but you're not locked into the deal yet. That only happens when you've signed the purchase contract and your cool-off period has ended. So if you get the report back a few days after your offer is accepted, and it turns out that the property is not what you think it was in terms of quality, you can definitely pull out. You can even pull out after signing the purchase contract, but it has to be before the cool-off period ends, which ends 3 days after you sign the purchase contract. I hope that answers your question, Kamal. A question from
Oh,
Nadia. Oh, yeah, go for it.
yeah, no, no. Thanks for the response. I do have a follow-up question, but probably I can ask that after
Yeah,
Nadia.
let me help Nadia, and I'll be with you, Kamal. Nadia, can you ask the seller to cover the costs for default? You can definitely do that. Please be mindful. If it's a very competitive market, then find out how much you want to ask, right? But you can definitely try and do that. Kamal, go for it.
Right, thanks. I think you also mentioned that when you buy a property, you want to hold it for like a year or so before you decide to sell it.
I
Is
would
that
do it
just to
for
cover
five
the
years.
one-time cost?
I would
Sorry?
do it for 5 years. Why? Because the purchase cost, well, 3 or 5%, you'd have to earn that back, right? Also, don't forget that if you sell the property, you would have to also make some costs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the equity that you build up becomes interesting after several years. Also, if you buy something now and you decide to sell it in 1 year, let's say something happens, right? We can't predict the future. Let's say something happens and prices do fall a little bit in the next year. then you want to be sure that you can weather that, that you can actually stay for a little bit longer or rent it out for a little bit longer. And you don't have to sell, because selling at a lower price only becomes an issue if you're forced to sell, right? Selling at a price that is a little bit higher because you can wait a little bit longer makes much more sense. Like properties, I wouldn't use them to speculate, right? It's too big of an investment in time and money. So if you use them to buy it for 1 year, I would call it speculation. Like at least 3+ years makes sense, but I would say 5 years or more. Honestly, I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, I'm so happy I didn't buy a property 10 or 20 years ago." So the longer you have it, the more impact you'll likely make. Because there's so many fiscal benefits as well, right? Whether it's the tax advantage or anything like that. So don't underestimate that.
Right. Thanks for it. I was just curious because in one of the previous slides, we kind of also talked about that prices don't look like they're going to come down, but I understand it's a tail risk, which.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't expect them to come down, but again, I can't like nobody could have seen COVID coming, right? And I still
Mhm.
find it somewhat challenging to understand what the impact of COVID will really be once we kind of like strip down all the government measures, and who know, we have a winter coming ahead. So I would, just to be sure, don't buy for 1 year, buy for a little bit longer. You'll get the benefits from having the equity. Plus, if you rent for 5 years, you'll just wash money down the drain or flush the money down the drain. So, my advice would be to buy it longer, because I cannot guarantee that nothing's going to happen to the prices. I can only say that as far as any external factors that we see, I don't think they're going to impact the price anytime soon. But there might be bigger macroeconomical or just macro global
Mhm.
trends that could impact it. But it's very difficult to predict. But again, in the long run, real estate has proven to be a very kind of like stable and growing income an asset.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers. Another question from Mei Ling. How long is the time between the acceptance of the offer and signing the bridge contract? Take your time, like not too long, because the seller will want to know that you're actually going to move forward. I would say a week and a half, around that, a week and a half, maximum 2 weeks. Any further questions from you guys? I
Yes.
Yeah, go
Sorry, I
for it.
just have one more question.
Yeah,
So
go for
I
it.
did go to a viewing, and for example, I saw that the floorboards were a bit leaky. So in that case, can you negotiate on the asking price to account for the repair that you'd have to do?
So what I would do is I would first secure the property, get an offer in, and accept the get it accepted, and then have the technical inspector come in, and then have him point that out and say, okay, hey, yes, well, it's more than we thought. The impact, la la. That's what I would do. Okay. If there are no further questions, guys and girls, another one. Do you at EHN have colleagues to cover almost all the various jobs fees needed? No. So we only help with actually securing a home for you. We are not mortgage advisors. We are not appraisers. And also, what might be good to know is that some of these jobs cannot be done by the same company. So we only help with actually securing your home. So we guide you through the process. Maybe I do have a slide about that. No, I don't have a slide about that. I do have a slide about that. Here you go. So what we do is we offer two types of services. Technically, they're both focused on helping you secure your home. We offer a smart service. And for the smart service, we are kind of like your digital real estate agent. We don't do the search because Funda has a very clear and open way of doing the search. But what we do is we do an intake with you. We'll be there to answer any questions. We'll review the properties and define the market valuation. Very important for the offer submission. We'll also draft the offer, send it, negotiate on your behalf, and we'll review all the legal documents. And then we will have book third parties and do transfer support. By the way, the pricing of these have changed. This has gone up to 2,500 euros. This has gone down to 4,000 euros. Why? Because the market's become a little bit more competitive. So it took us more time to actually support people. And because with the complete package, we were able to actually make it a little bit more efficient. What do we do for complete? We schedule intake. We'll be your personal buying manager. We'll schedule viewings. We attend viewings. So just pop in links that share with us, and then we'll actually attend and schedule the viewings. We'll do the property review, define the market value, and do a legal document review. Also, of course, help with the negotiations and the offer. We'll book in third parties. We'll actually attend the inspection and the notary, and we'll offer transfer support. Let me change this for now as well. So smart, 2,500 euros, complete 4,000 euros. Any further questions? Then I want to wish you a lovely afternoon and a lovely weekend as well. Take care. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. Don't hesitate to reach out or schedule an intake. Again, have a lovely afternoon. Thanks for joining and listening. Thanks for your questions as well. And hope you'll stay safe. Take care.